Mr. Kelly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a motion to elect Mr. Grimm as Treasurer Pro Tem.
I'll move.
With first and second, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bama?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Yielding?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to public comments, we have Thomas, is it Sanford?
Thomas Sanford, yes.
Signed up. Let me get to that page here. Community comments are one way for citizens to communicate with the Board of Education. When your name is called, please come to the podium and state your name, address, and topic. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Remember, this is a formal and official meeting of the Board of Education, and what you say becomes part of the official meeting record. If your comment involves a problem with a student, employee, or board member, please do not identify them by name. Keep in mind we're meeting in a schoolhouse in the presence of students. At this time, the primary role of the Board of Education is to listen and reflect on what is said. Sometimes we may respond or ask questions, but not always. Whether or not we respond, your input is valued.
Yep, my name is Tom Sanford. The address is 8580 Canning Lane here in Streetsboro, and the topic of discussion is being able to have access to the field turf for some of the youth programs. I'm more or less here as a taxpaying citizen, and also an SJB 9U manager of a travel team that just started this year. Just to kind of give you a quick overview of why I'm here. Initially, we set this baseball team up to be able to compete in surrounding areas at a higher level. We started back in January, raised some money, was able to get facilities indoors for January, February, March. I was hopeful or under the assumption that we could potentially have this team use the field turf for 4 to 5 times for the month of April until the fields dry out. So at that point, I went up to the field, kind of looked, everything was locked up. So then I reached out to Mr. Tielenpaw and said, hey, I saw there's a sign that says permit, access to the field turf is by permit only. So I said, okay. So I sent my email, waited for a response, wanted to go through the necessary steps to gain access to the field turf. I got a response back that no youth organizations are able to use the field turf per district policy. So at that point, I thought to myself, one, why would the community not want to empower the youth of our program or the city to give them the best facilities they can to compete? And then also as a taxpayer, most of the people that in this community dug deep in their pockets to pay for the facilities and get things up and running, and then we're telling our parents, sorry, you paid for it, but we can't use it. It puts me in a hard spot. Each week I have to tell our kids, sorry, we can't, no practice this week. We have to go to other surrounding areas. And the first thing these parents tell me is, why can't we use our facilities we paid for? One of the reasons why I started this program, I believe it's the first travel program for Streetsboro baseball. A lot of these kids are leaving the area. They're going to play other cities. And to me, what happens is those kids will, at a young age, go play travel ball somewhere else. They'll develop relationships in those cities, then eventually they transfer to those cities. So we're losing kids. My vision was keep those kids here. For one, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to have a travel baseball experience. 2, we want to keep the kids here, build our program, keep the kids in our city, and be able to show, surrounding areas, we have just as good as facilities, we have just as good as kids as any other surrounding area. That was kind of an overview of where I am. That got me to this point now. So I'm still in contact with Randy, and I've reached out to John, and that's why I'm here. My concern, and I guess my main point is, why would we not want to empower, the youth of our community with the facilities that we have available to allow them to succeed? And then 2, I don't understand why we wouldn't want to show the community, hey, here's what your money went for. I understand that, not every organization is just going to be able to walk on the field. We're not asking, for a pickup game. It's 9-year-old boys, 12 of them, that has a structured, organized practice. There's 5 coaches. It's very structured. It's not just a pickup team that comes on at will. So what I'm really looking for is, one, just an answer or an explanation of why we would not be able to do that.
We will get our administrator, athletic director to contact you and
Okay.
give you the answers that you're looking for.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Mr. President, there's no one else.
Thank you. Alex?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live broadcast of the Streetsboro Board of Education meeting. I'm Alexander Thompson. Tonight's meeting is being held in the Henry Denver Intermediate Cafeteria, and now here's School Board President Brian Buelley.
Thank you, Alex. Moving on to approval of minutes. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from March 8th, 2018 as submitted.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly? Here. Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to report, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to begin by welcoming Dr. Linda Robinson from Kent State University, and she's here to share a proclamation of appreciation. While she's walking up to the mic, as all of you know, we've participated for several years in the International Leaders in Education program through Kent State, and we were very fortunate that Linda invited us to become a part of that. And so I think she's here to talk a little bit about that.
Well, thank you very much, Board of Education, community members. On behalf of the Gerald Reed Center for International and Intercultural Education at Kent State's College of Education, Health and Human Services, aren't you glad you don't have to say that all day? I'm here to kind of formalize the relationship that has existed for all 12 years of the International Leaders in Education program. It is not going to be continued, and so it seemed like a fitting thing to come and say thank you for the 12 years of participation. We are in a national competition again for a new program that will be entitled Fulbright programs. They've been all the teacher education programs have moved to a higher level and are now going to be under the Fulbright Commission, so we can be proud of the fact that maybe because of the success of these programs, they are getting more attention at the national level. So I'd like to read the proclamation, please. To all involved in the Streetsboro City Schools community. Whereas Kent State University has hosted the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs program called the International Leaders in Education. Whereas this program, administered by IREX, brings 16 international teachers from around the world to be hosted by universities and public schools. And whereas the Streetsboro City Schools has been a faithful and enthusiastic supporter and host for this program by opening their doors for field experiences for these international teachers. And whereas the resulting cultural exchanges have enriched the international teachers both professionally and personally, and where having these teachers in the Streetsboro City Schools has provided global context to the faculty, staff, students, and community of Streetsboro, Ohio. And whereas global understanding and world peace begins with citizen one-to-one diplomacy like the one described above. And whereas Senator J. William Fulbright said, educational exchange is not merely one of the nice but marginal activities that we engage in international affairs, but rather from the standpoint of the future world peace. Probably the most important and potentially rewarding of our foreign policy activities. And he wrote that in his book, From the Prince of Empire. Now, therefore, let it be known locally and globally that Kent State University hereby extends its deep gratitude to the Streetsboro City Schools for opening their doors, hearts, and minds to this global exchange. Thank you very much on behalf of Kent State University, IREX, and the State Department.
Thank you.
I even wore my blue, right? Just did right. A little bit too light, but it'll do right. Of course, it could be Kent State blue too.
I would like to say, as Linda is retreating back to her seat, that this program, I mean, you guys have been aware of this program for years. It has been profound, the impact that it's had. You know, not very many schools that I'm aware of, at least in this region, have the opportunity to have a visiting educator from another country come and spend a semester with us. And it was a very powerful experience. For me personally, it was very powerful. I went to all of the welcome breakfasts, and then I was fortunate enough to be able to get tours to our visiting scholars of the buildings and to hear their perspectives on education and what they do in their countries as opposed to American education. It's really, in some cases, it was startling. And I think that, I don't know if any of the students in here right now had the pleasure of being with some of these international teachers, but they really, as Linda read the proclamation, they really kind of opened our eyes up to the world. And I think it is one of the best forms of diplomacy, but it's a great program. I hope Kent State receives the Fulbright Scholarship. Is it a Fulbright Scholarship, is that what we said?
It's a Fulbright program. It's going to be called Distinguished Teacher Award.
So I'm hoping that they get that, and I'm going to quietly knock on her door and beg her to let us participate. But we've had a great partnership with Kent State in many areas, and I would say that this is one of my favorite, and it's been one of the most impactful. So, thank you, Linda.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. We are going to move our promising practice to next month. I don't want to tell you what it is because I don't want to give away any of Brandy's presentation, but we had a little mix up on some things, so we're going to do that next month. Okay, so moving on down, I want to give you guys a quick staffing update. If you remember a year ago, we had an influx of students in the Streetsboro City Schools, and our enrollment now, with open enrollment included, we are close to 2,300 students. When I started here in 2010, we were just around 2,000. So in 8 years, we've grown to almost 300 students, and we had a significant amount of growth this last year. And if you remember a year ago this time, I think I shocked most of you when I said that we were going to have to add 10 certified teachers to the payroll, and we needed all 10 of those certified teachers. Well, I'm happy to report that I'm not in front of you today saying that we're going to add 10 teachers. In fact, I believe that we're actually, with some retirements, we're going to be able to absorb and at least maintain our current staffing, but maybe even reduce, not cut, but reduce because of retirements and moving people. So last year's hiring we had to do. A lot of it was driven by student need, and you guys remember that discussion. But I'm feeling very confident that aside from the elementary counselor that we posted for, and we already talked about how, I've talked about how we can move we're not going to do some programs and things this year that will almost pay for that we're not going to have to add a lot of staff this year. So that's a good thing. I'm going to give you final numbers in May of exactly what we're doing and what we're not doing, but I'm confident, pretty confident right now that we're not going to add a lot of staff this year. So I think that's good. Especially, due to the fact that all of you are very much aware that, we are now, our expenditures are exceeding our revenue. We haven't had any new money since 2010, and we've added over 300 kids and probably over 25 additional staff. And so right now we are spending more than we're taking it in, and we all know that's going to drive the need for a levy more than likely in November. But that has yet to be determined. Now, we're going to take a look at the May forecast first, and then we're going to put some numbers together. Matt, CJ, myself, and Arian, we're going to put some numbers together. We'll probably have something to present to you guys in May as far as the direction to go. So again, doesn't look like we're going to add 10 people. I don't think that we're going to add really anyone.
That's good.
Questions, comments?
Kind of scared me there at the beginning.
You're probably going to tell you another 10?
We need 10.
So I think we're good right now. We are at capacity at several grade levels. So, one of the things this board will probably hear, unfortunately, in June, that's when I process all the open enrollment applications. What I try to do, if a student has been open enrolled here for 3, 4, 5 years, we started open enrollment, I took over as superintendent. We needed kids because we had a lot of kids leaving to the online schools. That's flipped. So now I'm going to do the best that I can to take those students that have been here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and keep them here in open enrollment. But I'm going to have to very much scrutinize any new applications because we are just at capacity in several grade levels. And as you know, the mayor has approved, the city council has approved over 300 homes to be built over the next couple of years. So we're going to have to be unfortunately, we're going to be very choosy. It's a good problem when people want to come to us, but now it's going to be a case where I'm going to have to probably start turning some folks away. And that's never easy to do, but we have to honor our residents first, and that's what we'll do. Any questions about staffing? Okay, moving on. I just want to give a quick cell tower update. I don't know if I know I tweeted out the picture of the cell tower being worked on the day before yesterday, but T-Mobile has finished installing data and cellular service on that tower. I don't know the timeline for making it live, but I believe it's going to be the next couple weeks. Anyone on that side of town at the high school and the stadium, students, if any of you guys have T-Mobile, you're going to really enjoy a nice boost in service. We also know now that there are 2 other cell carriers that are now interested in putting data onto that pole. I don't want to say which ones because we haven't finalized any types of contract. But the reason I'm telling you is that area of Streetsboro represents one of the largest dead zones in this region. So with the addition of that cell tower at the football field, we're going to address cellular coverage for all of Streetsboro, and the kids at the high school are going to just go crazy. Those have T-Mobile because they're going to have better service than anybody. And it also, very frankly, created a revenue stream for our district. And if you remember, we as a board, you as a board, took my suggestion to take the money from that cell tower and we put it into our, I just call it a stadium athletic fund. That fund will go to repurpose if we need to repair a track, fix turf, do something to baseball or softball fields, things like that. So my goal is to have a large fund that's going to build an interest so that when we have to address facilities again in 9 or 10 years, we're going to have the money to do that, and that will have to be taken from the general fund. And right now we have between $300,000 and $400,000 between naming rights and the cell tower project that will be there for us to access when needed. So T-Mobile is lighting up soon. Any questions about that? All right. And then my final update, building project update. The middle school, students, you're going to be the first to hear this. The middle school, for all intents and purposes, is completed in the middle school. The only thing that's being done right now are some painting and touch-up work in the gymnasium, because the gymnasium was our staging area. So everything that we kept in the building and all the new supplies that came in went into the gymnasium. So then they built the building around it. They finished that up. Now everything had to come out of the gymnasium, and now they're repainting and redoing the gymnasium. So that is in its finishing stages. Most of the furniture is here. Our teacher desks are not delivered yet. I'm also happy to report that as of right now, we are, I'll use the word, well under budget. That was a building that we were all very nervous about. Out of the entire project, that renovation, that tear down and renovation of existing space and then add-on, we were pretty nervous about what we were going to find. And so those state assessors that assessed this back in, I think it was like 2008 was when the assessment was done, 2009. They knew what they were doing because we virtually had zero problems. And even a large budgeted amount for pavement we didn't need. And that was because when we had the fire back in 2010, we completely redid the pavement at that site and it held up. So we're just going to have to be able to put a nice surface coat on it and that'll be it. So look for some reports from me probably next month and into June about final numbers of money that's that we saved that we were under budget. Currently, if you remember, we had planned on keeping the old science tables because they were still in relatively good shape. In the back of the old science wings, we were going to keep those windows. The state actually said that we had to keep those windows. They were Pella windows like the ones you see behind you. And we were going to keep all of the science tables. Well, when you create a new building, because it's a brand new building, and you look at those old cabinets and you look at those old, what were the nice parts of that building, now they don't look so nice. So because we were under budget, we were able to replace all of the cabinets. We replaced all of the windows back in that wing. So they're all brand new storefront windows with emergency egress. And we were putting the finishing touches on a furniture package to put all new science tables in those rooms. So when you walk into the new Streetsboro Middle School, you will not find evidence of any of the old Streetsboro High School. It's pretty amazing. If you haven't had a chance to go walk it, you can log onto my Twitter feed. I took a video tour of it about a week ago. It's even further along now. I would invite you, don't even have to wear a hard hat now. So if you guys want to stop over there, board members, and check yourself in, find Tom Massey and walk around, call me if you want me to walk with you, I'll do that. But one of the things that I find pretty stunning is the new media center, what used to be the old STEM lab. And another area that some of our athletes who have since, actually somebody in the room, that experienced those old locker rooms, which are absolutely disgusting. I wouldn't even walk in there. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So It's a pretty awesome facility. So our timeline will be this. The first part of May, we're going to have Mr. Suber and his teachers and the rest of the staff get a tour. Then after that tour, the current the current 5th grade, the current 6th grade, and then the current middle schoolers will all get to tour that building. And then we're going to have a community open house before we move anything into it. So it's going to be like walking through a model home. We're going to have all the furniture's already there. It's been staged. So we're going to have a community open house where it won't have any of the teachers' things moved in yet. It'll just be all clean, nice facility with brand new furniture and nothing like that. So we'll do that more than likely on a Saturday or Sunday. And I'll get input from all of you about when we'll do that. But we'll do that probably in the middle of May. And then our custodial staff, maintenance staff can then begin moving our teachers' things after school's out over there. And if they're packed earlier than that, we can start moving things in. The rooms have been assigned, and it's really pretty. It's just unbelievable. I didn't expect it to be this nice, even though we knew it was going to be a new facility, in a new facility where the wings were added on. So any comments, questions? I know, Brian, you were over there today.
Yeah, it's an incredible building. I mean, you go in there and you won't, if you were blindfolded and put in the middle of the building, you would not know where you're at. It's a phenomenal building. It's going to be a great learning environment for kids.
You know, and it features a lot of 21st century learning things. At the high school, we have our extended learning areas, the flexible furniture. We do a lot of the same type of things. Lots of natural light, large windows. We have some light tubes in the building that bring in a lot of natural light.
That media center there wasn't a light switch turned on, but with those solar tube lights that are in there, it was sunny today a little bit, no snow, but it was extremely bright in that room. So it looks great. They did a great job.
I think this is another one of those jobs that FMD and Hammond together have really hit it out of the park. I know I said about SES where it always looked like a school that had been renovated, but then this last renovation when FMD got together with Hammond and you walk into the elementary school and it looks completely new, and now the old high school, new middle school looks the same way. So they did a great job.
Okay, and then my final comment would be regarding what is currently the middle school, what will become the old middle school. We are moving forward. We finalized a contract with Garland, and you guys approved this at the last board meeting, and work will commence on the new middle school, or old middle school roof, old middle school roof for a 30-year roof. That will begin in the early parts of June, and will finish right around August 15th or 16th. And then that building will have a 30-year roof to match all of our other new buildings. So this community, and I know I won't be here, and I don't know if any of us will be here in 30 years, but this community will not have to address a roof on a building in this district for many, many, many years. The roof on this building is a steel roof and it's been properly maintained, so we have a lot of life left in this as well. So we're sitting in a good spot. And it was, of course, thanks to the community in passing this bond issue. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dalba. I'm going to skip over treasurer's report. Is that correct? And then we'll move on to board reports. Ms. Baba.
I just want to mention that I was at the National School Boards Association convention this weekend, and I served as a delegate for the state of Ohio, and the delegate assembly passed a number of resolutions and some belief and policy updates. The main thrust of many of those were adding gender identity as a protected class, so that when folks for NSBA are lobbying in DC, that is one of the groups that they are also focusing on, protecting children that fall into that class. With regard to the conference itself, I just want to mention that the National School Boards Association has a new president. His name is Frank Pugh, and he is from California. And I'd also like to mention that elected this weekend was a gentleman by the name of Charlie Wilson, who is a school board member from Worthington, Ohio, and he was elected to serve as secretary treasurer, and if all goes well, he'll move up through the ranks and eventually become NSBA president. And I believe that's the first time ever anybody from Ohio has served as an officer for a National School Boards Association. So good job to Charlie.
With respect to my own attendance at the conference, I attended a number of different workshops and sessions, and primarily focused on things regarding social emotional learning and mental health for students. So overall, I thought it was a very good conference. It was very well attended, and I thought there was a lot of benefit to it.
Thank you, Ms. Baba. Mr. Kelly?
Do we currently have the president in Ohio for the OSBA and NSBA? Right?
No, so when you get elected secretary treasurer, you kind of move up through the ranks, then you become a president-elect and then president. So he's on this path to becoming that for the National School Boards Association.
Represents, that's good. Yeah, I just have a few updates on athletics. So for track, girls track is currently 2-1 overall and 1-1 in the league. They placed second out of 14 teams at the Newton Falls Invitational. The team is led by juniors Krista Prezek. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I did. Prezek. Hannah Smith and Ashley Garlitz. Sophomores Tori Wagner in sprints and Kaylee Klein in mid-distance. Freshman Erica Richards is leading the team in the hurdle events. The guys track team is currently 0-3 and 0-2 in the league. They placed third out of 14 teams at the Newton Falls Invitational. They're led by seniors Benny Schaefer in the hurdles and Bailey Devers in the mid-distance events. And then her brother Riley is leading the leading 2-mile runner. Both teams will run at the 25th annual Aurora Greenman Invitational tomorrow night. Softball, they're 1-3 girls softball. Rhiannon Head, I hope I said that right, started the season with a .615 batting average and 3 triples. Maddie Rice hit a 3-run homer versus Cloverleaf. The baseball team is 0-3 and 0-2 in the conference. They're currently pretty young. They have 3 freshmen and 4 or 5 sophomores, so the future is very bright. But I know they're playing right now, and at Cloverleaf, I think they're having a close game, so let's hope they pull one out. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Gibson?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Green?
A couple of quick things. I know we already received information on this, but I just wanted to give the shout out to Mr. Ciola and the students at the middle school. Congratulations to the 12 students from the 7th and 8th grade bands that attended the Ohio Music Education Association Junior High Solo and Ensemble Contest in Kent, April 7th. The event included nearly 40 area schools, more than 600 students total. Streetsboro's 12 students, which included a flute trio, clarinet quartet, percussion quartet, and a flute soloist, all received a 1 or superior rating. That's kind of unheard of. There's usually 1s, 2s, maybe occasional 3s, usually not from Streetsboro. But all of Mr. Ciola's students got a 1 superior rating. So congratulations to Mr. Ciola and the middle school students on that great accomplishment. And from the city, there's been some back and forth change of information on the construction on Route 303. The latest that I've seen was the construction is beginning on State Route 303 at the bypass, and starting Monday, it is reported that State Route 303 will be completely closed at the bypass and what we affectionately call the bowl for a period of 2 weeks. The bypass road will be reopened as soon as they can get the upgrades completed on the bypass. And around July 1st, State Route 303 will be closed again from Jefferson to the railroad tracks for the culvert replacement over Tinker's Creek. And according to ODOT and what the mayor has posted online, it'll be for about 30 days. So hopefully that won't affect anything with the schools. With that part, the other one will. If any other plans change, I'll send that out to the administration so that you're aware of it as soon as I find out. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. And I do not have anything to report. I sent the Maplewood meeting notes to you all. Moving on to the consent agenda. Please recommend the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through P.
I'll second.
First and second. Any comments?
I just want to point out a retirement. Mr. Iso's been with the district for many years, and he has made the decision to retire effective March 31st, the end of the year. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Iso's service to the district.
I could just say thank you to those that made donations this month. You had a lengthy list there to go through. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Superintendent's recommendations.
Yes, I have several. Item A, hiring of deputy principal. If I could have Mr. Matthew Bryan stand, please, for a minute. I'm going to read my recommendation, and under discussion, I want to introduce Mr. Bryan to all of you. It is recommended the Board of Education hire Matthew Bryan as principal at Henry Depper Intermediate School, 204 days at the salary of $88,500 plus other administrative benefits beginning August 1st, 2018 through July 31st, 2020.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Bryan. Matt progressed through, I would say, one of the more rigorous interview paths that we've had in a while here. We we put him in front of about 8 administrators initially, along with 11 other folks that applied. We had over 55 people apply. From that interview, he was the clear top person. We sent 2 people on to a community and teacher round where community members and teachers were a part of that. And at the end of that interview process, again, he was a unanimous pick number 1. And then he came to a final interview in front of myself and Assistant Superintendent Ariane Curtis, where we talked to him about how he would fit into Streetsboro. And again, we have then, of course, offered him the job. Some of the things I want you guys to know about Matt, before going into administration, he was a nationally certified board teacher. That is not an easy task to master, and he did that. That shows his commitment to education and teaching, which is what is a good foundation for an administrator. He had 7 years of teaching experience, and he has since had 5 years as a school administrator. Most recently, he came to us from Maple Heights, Barack Obama Intermediate School, is that correct? That's a 4-5 building, and ironically, he will be taking over a 4-5 intermediate building. When we talk to folks about Matt, people describe him as being hands-on, child-centered, and collaborates with the staff to develop a clear vision for the school. We had 2 different reference checks that submitted written reference checks for us, and one of his references said, Mr. Bryan is a get-it-done person. He is direct and decisive. He listens to others, but is comfortable making and enforcing decisions. That was something that really stuck out to us, and Matt talked a lot about that in his interview, responded to questions that indicated that. And then one of the supervisors actually said this: Matt is highly organized and direct. He does an excellent job of laying out the task ahead of time and attacking it head-on while considering all the details. He is not afraid to ask for help or the opinions of others, which is critical, and also brings in the assistance of others for a team approach when needed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Bryan. I believe his wife, Erin, is here. Matthew, you want to say anything, or just?
I just want to say that I am absolutely thrilled to be part of this district. It was a very, very rigorous process to go through the interview panel. It was a great meeting with all the people that I've had the opportunity to meet during the process, and I'm extremely humbled and blessed to have this opportunity. So thank you for it.
Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Bryan?
Well, we got to vote first, so. Love the confidence. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Welcome aboard.
Item B, it's recommended the Board of Education extend Darlene Wheeler's contract up to 10 days per diem rate for the 2017-18 school year.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly? Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item C, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the certified contracts as shown.
I'll move.
I'll second. First and second, any comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried.
Item D, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the classified contracts as shown.
I'll move.
I'll second.
First and second, comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations, and I'd like all of you to note the time.
That was pretty quick, actually.
Well done, Mike.
But the treasurer's going to beat you again.
Oh, of course.
So,
Should I start with
moving,
timer?
yeah, moving on, there are no treasurer's recommendations. Do we have any new business? Hearing none, any old business? Hearing none. Moving on to board president's recommendations, approval of policies. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the following policy revisions as shown in the attachment.
I'll move. I'll second.
First and second, any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mrs. Bava.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes, motion carried. Item B is recommend the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the compensation and discipline of a public employee or official, to consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statute, and to consider details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office with possible action to follow.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bava.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
This motion carried. We're in executive session at 6:41.